Hello everyone, I welcome you to a very special episode of my reviews here on Kircher Talks Entertainment. Normally when I see movies that I want to review on YouTube, I dedicate a whole entire video to them, but sometimes my life gets kind of chaotic and I have some other plans that I want to fulfill here on my channel. And so with that, I wanted to talk about 3 specific movies that came out pretty much in the same weekend, but I was super hyped to see. Those 3 movies include Jojo Rabbit by director Taika Waititi, The Lighthouse by director Robert Eggers, and Parasite by director Bong Joon-ho. All 3 of these movies were among my most anticipated of the year, and I would have been willing to make videos on all 3 of them, but because of other things that are coming out soon that I want to talk about in depth, and just other topics that people like yourself would have been interested in, I figured it would have been best just to keep all 3 of these movies contained in one singular review. So with that being said, I'm going to talk about all 3 of these movies in a quick review format that you will see from time to time, but I won't try to do too often because I like to do as many videos on movies as I can. And as a result, I will be talking about all these movies in alphabetical order, starting with Jojo Rabbit, then going to The Lighthouse, and Parasite. Let's begin. Now, as I've mentioned, the first one I'll talk about is Jojo Rabbit, coming from a filmmaker that I truly love. I think it's wonderful that New Zealand's finally found someone other than Peter Jackson to represent their country, especially since Taika Waititi is part Maori. His creative output continues to be unique as well, crafting intimate dramedies like Boy and Hunt for the Wilder People, the hysterical What We Do in the Shadows franchise, and it wasn't anywhere near as high on Thor Ragnarok as most people, but Taika Waititi is pretty much the reason why it's the best installment in that trilogy. Needless to say that he's one of the most interesting voices in cinema today, and I'm happy he was given the chance to do something as daring as a dark comedy set in Nazi Germany. Obviously, a movie of this subject matter and tone will not work for everyone, and that's to be expected. I'd like to think that Taika Waititi must have known that going into production, because for better or worse, he made a movie seemingly untarnished by studio interference. The result of this is a story that brazenly depicts a sensationalized version of Germany at the end of World War II. What develops from here is a tale consistent with what Taika Waititi calls an anti-hate satire. At the center of the movie, we find a conflict between 2 people who couldn't be any different from one another. On one side, there is Jojo Betzler, a jingoistic 11-year-old boy who could be both Hitler's poster child and a shoo-in for the KKK. On the other, there is Elsa, a Jewish refugee that Jojo is shocked to find hiding upstairs in his own home. You can imagine where the story goes from there, but I have to admit that it managed to keep me engaged from beginning to end. While the movie is unfortunately pulled down by some really awkward shifts in tone, Taika Waititi's Adolf impersonation honestly being the main reason, it otherwise compensates with some of the most emotional movie moments of the entire year. Subtlety isn't the name of the game for themes here, but the character-driven drama matched by terrific performances consistently kept the movie's energy level high. The progression of Jojo's character from proud Nazi to what he eventually becomes was absolutely satisfying to me, given that newcomer Roman Griffith Davis sold every crucial element of that growth. For me, I appreciate when storytellers are brave enough to provide a character study on someone that the audience shouldn't immediately side with. Providing time for the flawed individual to grow and come to terms with their frailties makes for a more rewarding experience for the audience. And in a film that is undeniably flawed and oversteps its boundaries in some cases, the ends ultimately justified the means for me. You may not find as much to appreciate here as I did, but you wouldn't be amiss to give this bold story a chance. With that, Jojo Rabbit receives a B+, in addition to an age recommendation of 12 and up. And now we move on to The Lighthouse, which I now consider to be one of the best horror films I've ever seen. Robert Eggers, a former set designer turned filmmaker, made a huge impression on film fans when he released his debut feature The Witch. It first scared the crap out of audiences at the 2015 Sundance Film Festival, and then had an even stronger impact once it hit theaters a year later. His so-called New England folktale absolutely was not for everyone, and although it wasn't among my favorites of 2016, I can easily say that I admired the craftsmanship he showed off in it. His follow-up, The Lighthouse, however, pretty much gave me everything I could ever hope for from a movie. Without being confined to one single genre, The Lighthouse is basically a campfire story transformed into cinema. With that, the screenplay works completely without being interpretable in one single way, leaving for the audience to make their own assumptions. But since the core story remains focused on the growing tension between Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson's characters, it's free of fluff and pointless subplots, leaving the film room to grow in fascinating ways. Mesmerizing dialogue, metaphorical imagery, and a refusal to ever explain what's really going on on, help the story be whatever the audience wants it to be. I'd be more annoyed if convoluted movies were left vague, but the simplicity of The Lighthouse really does its lasting value many favors. Because of those qualities, the filmmaking and performances shine wonderfully. Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson both turn in career best work in this movie, effortlessly carrying the entire production on their shoulders. Dafoe is probably the more likely candidate for an actual award, but even so, their combined work is some of the most magnetic acting I've seen all year. Many of their lines are destined to be quotable due to how perfectly they enunciate their words, the likes of which are accurate to the era. And above all, the soundtrack and visuals are absolutely top-notch. Mark Corvin's score provides the ethereal, atmospheric tone that pumps dread into every second of the runtime, and The Lighthouse also works wonderfully because it echoes the very essence of a release from days gone by. Beyond the fact that this was shot on a full-screen aspect ratio with black and white 35mm film, The Lighthouse employs lighting techniques, visual effects shots, and production design to date the film in a specific time and place. This adds a notable degree of realism to a story that's otherwise extremely bizarre and contributes to a surreal experience that begs to be seen. Fans of film, regardless of their history with horror movies, absolutely must check out this mesmerizing piece of work. Some will get more out of it than others, but it deserves attention for all the innovative things it does with virtually every aspect of filmmaking. With that, The Lighthouse gets an A in addition to an age recommendation of 17 and up. But as if The Lighthouse wasn't already highly praised by yours truly, then be ready for some ridiculous hype. After all, Parasite's not only the best movie of 2019, it may just be one of the best movies of the decade. Maybe an all-timer? Not quite sure yet on that one. But in a year that's been full of such mediocrity and disappointment as far as my movie-going experiences have been, Korean filmmaker Bong Joon-ho's latest creation is something I can comfortably call a masterpiece. It's so refreshing to finally experience something this intellectually stimulating and entertaining in equal measure, for I haven't felt such deep satisfaction from a movie since perhaps Your Name in 2017. But what exactly is it about Parasite that makes it stand out among so many films from the past couple of years? To put it plainly, this is the rare production in which everything fell into place perfectly. Technical errors and storytelling inconsistencies will be in every movie, but Parasite transcends even the most minor criticisms since it's a seamless, mesmerizing, and masterfully crafted story brought to life by a cast and crew that seem to be 100% in sync with one another. By some miracle, this results in Bong's artistic vision being brought to life in the most cinematic, entertaining, and exciting way you can imagine. To be more specific, Parasite delves into the issue of class in extremely thrilling and incisive ways. That's the very essence of what Parasite's about, permeating every conversation, character trait, plot twist, and theme that the film has at its disposal. The film isn't shy about having these elements, but on the flip side, it uses them to make some truly profound statements about the world we live in, not just Korea. Social commentary is utilized here not because some out-of-touch producer wanted to appease their audience, rather it comes from a genuine place in this situation. Therefore, the subtext plays a supportive role for a movie that directors like Hitchcock would have killed to make nowadays. Parasite is a fun story on its own terms given its clever balance of dark humor, mystery, thrills, and suspense, and the thematic content is that which makes its impact as hard as a bullet to the chest. Since Parasite will likely end up being my movie of the year, I should address why it impacted me on such a personal level. Did I have quite the same transcendent emotional experience that I did with last year's First Reformed? No, but Parasite wasn't necessarily going for that kind of reaction. Instead, it's the kind of social thriller that eased me in with its alluring qualities, and then twisted my gut with all the truths I had to share. While a lesser movie would have preached at me with its themes, Bong Joon-ho lunged at me through his screenplay and reached into the very recesses of my soul. I witnessed humanity at its most animalistic in Parasite, and even though the film was entertaining enough to allow me to sit back and just enjoy the ride, I was eventually pulled back to reality so that I could see shades of the Kim and Park families echoed in my own human weaknesses. And I'm left wondering if Parasite will affect others in the same way, placing a mirror in front of viewers who must then confront themselves through. With that, Parasite gets the very rare rating of a perfect A+, in addition to an age recommendation of 16 and up. Thank you so much for watching my reviews as always. Look forward to a full video on Terminator Dark Fate, hopefully coming later this week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe to my channel. It does help me grow my content here on YouTube. And feel free to ring the bell as well if you would like to receive notifications every single time I publish a video. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great one.